The Secrets of Life with Suvas Agam.
Namaste, welcome to the Secrets of Life. We are really honored today to have a special guest with us. Today at Kathmandu, we are at Maharishi Vastu Bhawan, and we have Professor Dr. Kingsley Brooks. We'll know more about him. He is a professor. At the same time, he did a lot of work for Vedic Maharishi University. So we'll know more about him and Transcendental Meditation and Maharishi. Let's welcome him. Welcome to the show, sir. I'm really honored to have you.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you very much.
You understand Nepali?
Very little.
Very little. But you look really beautiful on this Dhaka topi.
Thank you.
So, as the philosophy of Maharishi goes, Maharishi Foundation have assigned kings for a few countries. So you are king for 7 countries, as we have informed. So I want to know how does that work?
Well, I think Maharishi called us Rajas. We had training to become Rajas. I guess it translates as king, but really it's like being an international administrator for the global country of world peace. Okay. Which was the umbrella organization that Maharishi founded to oversee all of the administration of all of his Vedic technologies, Vedic science, and Vedic knowledge to the world. Okay. And so I am responsible for about 7 countries to make sure that his knowledge and his gift to the world is being administered in the proper way, that it's being made available to everyone from these countries that I'm responsible for. So I call myself an international director, because king might have a different kind of connotation. Maybe you could call it like Vedic king rather than a knowledge, a king based in knowledge.
Your father was really an influential scientist and was advisor of 3 presidents of America. And it's amazing to belong from that big good family. So, and I have also heard that your father had relation with Maharishi himself. So you also met Maharishi, and that's amazing. So would love to hear how was Maharishi and how was your father's relation with him, and how you came into Maharishi Foundation.
Well, you know, I started Transcendental Meditation when I was quite young, only 19 years of age. And I was in college, you know, and I saw a picture of Maharishi and said, introductory lecture on Transcendental Meditation. So I was very interested, and I went and I learned. And immediately, you know, after hearing the introductory lecture and then beginning the practice and having the experience of transcending, it struck me very deeply that this was something new. This was something special. And I immediately at that time realized I wanted to become a teacher of this. So I wanted to become a teacher of Transcendental Meditation. And it may be about a month or 2 later, Maharishi was offering a very special course for people who wanted to become teachers in Amherst, Massachusetts, which is in nearby Boston, the western part of Massachusetts. And so I went to that course. And Maharishi was planning at the end of this course for people who wanted to become teachers, he was planning an international symposium on the science of creative intelligence. And the science of creative intelligence is the science of consciousness, the science of that field of life that is within us all, that transcendental field, which in Vedic terminology is Atma, which is that field of the self, big S self, big self. And his science of creative intelligence was a science that had both intellectual understanding and practical experience. The practical experience, or you could say like the lab work for the science of creative intelligence, was the experience of transcendental consciousness, the experience of transcendental meditation. And then the theoretical side was his knowledge of how intelligence manifests, how it becomes part of our laws of nature and all of these things that we see around us. So this was his science of creative intelligence, both theoretical and practical. Just like, you know, in physics, when you study physics, you not only understand the theories, but you also do lab work. You know, you see how the theory of motion works, so you could see, do experiments. And so I was on this course. It was the Science of Creative Intelligence course, learning to become a teacher of Transcendental Meditation. But Maharishi had planned a symposium for 2 weeks at the end of this course. And he had heard that my father was a very influential scientist in the United States. He was president of this American Academy of Science. He was science advisor to several presidents, as you mentioned. And so he wanted to meet with me. Maharishi wanted to meet with me to get to know my father through me. And so I had a wonderful meeting, and I had the opportunity to meet with Maharishi. And Maharishi wanted very much for my father to come, and he came, and he gave a talk at Amherst on his field, which was science and public policy. And his field of expertise was taking new knowledge and applying it for the betterment of society. And it was a very important time, you know, when many new discoveries in science were developing technologies associated with that. Nuclear energy, many different emerging technologies were coming. And it was very important that how you take that knowledge and apply it to society for the betterment of society without having detrimental side effects. And really, Maharishi was very interested in this, because what Maharishi was introducing was a new knowledge, even though it had its basis in the ancient Vedic knowledge,
of course,
which everyone I think from Nepal is very familiar with. Maharishi's contribution was to take this ancient knowledge, eternal knowledge that was spoken about many times over the history of time, and revive it in the scientific language of our time. And to do that, he had to talk and interact with the really leading scientists of our time to understand how to formulate this knowledge, this ancient knowledge, in the scientific language of our time. And so he was very keen to meet with my father, because my father had influence in the scientific community. At first, my father didn't really understand completely, you know. It was so new to him, new field of knowledge.
Of course.
But as my participation in becoming a teacher and getting more deeply involved in everything, he began to appreciate seeing very positive changes that happened in my life. It said, well, no, this isn't something that's dangerous or something that taking him away from practical life. He realized that this was having some beneficial effect on the direction of my life. Because immediately when I started Transcendental Meditation, you know, my grades improved. I became very focused on where I was going to go, what I was going to do. Very much more clarity of mind just naturally came from the practice of Transcendental Meditation. So we began to appreciate it from that level. But it took some time before, many years, in fact, you know, maybe about, I think, 10 years before he himself became more involved and actually started the practice of Transcendental Meditation. And he started for his own benefit. He had some health problems, heart problems. And so he realized, by looking at a lot of the scientific research that had been done on Transcendental Meditation, extensive scientific research, he realized, well, this might be something that could help me in the field of health. And he had immediate benefits, and he practiced regular meditation from then until the end of his life, you know. And he also started to help Maharishi in some of the projects we had. You know, Maharishi wanted to bring some of the Vedic pundits of India, Nepal, to United States, to have at our university, Maharishi International University in Fairfield, Iowa. And it was necessary to get visas and all these things. And my father had good connections with the American ambassador in India. And so he had helped write letters and helped, you know, give an endorsement to what Maharishi was trying to do, and that was to bring a peaceful, more peaceful world by gathering these groups of Vedic pundits together to practice the technologies of consciousness together to create an influence of peace and harmony in the world. I don't know if that's an overview of how came to, but there was many meetings that Maharishi had with my father to discussing different things and bringing out different things, but my relationship with Maharishi was very much in terms of my father. He was really keen on really penetrating into the scientific community because he knew that even really to have his knowledge accepted in this scientific age, it had to be in that language. Because people had rejected, sort of this mysticism or religious, and he knew that even though this knowledge was ancient, it had to be in this modern language of our time.
When Maharishi went to the West, it was time when hippie movement was also rising.
Very beginning, 1958.
At the same time, Bhagwan Rajneesh also was there. Osho cult was also going on in America, all across the world. And Osho followers were really on the, trigger of police and government. They were not liked by American government, as you know. At the same time, this hippie movement is going, revival is going on in America. It was not the peaceful time, isn't it? So at that time, what was the core thing of transcendental meditation that you chose? This is the path that I will
I think I was part of that generation that was looking for something because of the chaos and the Vietnam War and all these things that were going on at the time. I just had an inner feeling that there's something more to life than just this chaos and this surface level. And so, somehow when I saw Maharishi's picture and I saw the introductory lecture, as I mentioned, and then when I experienced it, I knew this was something good. And the interesting thing is,
were you exposed to Hare Krishna movement or other movement at the same time?
Those things I was exposed to, but they didn't appeal to me.
Okay.
Because it was more of a rehashing of the same old thing, whereas Maharishi was really bringing out something very deep, deep knowledge. Veda. If you translate the word Veda, it means knowledge. It's really, and Veda has been in the guise of religion. You think of Hinduism, you think of this, but Maharishi recognized and realized that this ancient Vedic knowledge was not owned by India or owned by Nepal. It was knowledge that is for everyone, for the betterment of society at whole. And for this reason, he went to the West, because he saw that new ideas were more accepted in the West. New ideas were there. So he realized he could really have a greater impact. And you experience that even during when Maharishi was with us, he would bring many of the scientists from the United States and Western Europe to India and have them speak to everybody. The same Vedic knowledge that was coming from India, coming from Nepal. And it was very new to them to hear it, put in this language, and it actually inspired them.
And that would convince them.
It convinced them, more. It wasn't the same old thing,
Right.
Because, the essence had been lost. The spirit of the knowledge, the Vedic knowledge, had been lost. Because, if you go to the Vedic literature, the first most important verse that Maharishi liked so much in Rig Veda was Riksho Akshare Parme Vyoman Yasmin Deva Adi Vishve Nishedu. The verses of the Veda exist in the transcendental field. They're not in the books. If you want to know Veda, you have to go where Veda is, and that is in the field of consciousness. Veda is like the blueprint of creation. It is the structuring dynamics of all of creation. It is the intelligence that gives rise to all material creation. And knowing that, taking the awareness to that and experiencing that, we begin to imbue the mind with that field of infinite energy potential and a field of all possibilities. When you live that and begin to know that in your life, you know Veda, and you know the power of Veda, because it's a field where anything can come from. And when you're fully awake in that field, then it's a field of all possibilities. And heaven on earth can be even created. That's what Maharishi put forward.
Yeah.
We can create heaven on earth. Because, you know, as you discover deeper and deeper and deeper laws of nature, more and more power becomes available. You know, that you can take a ball and throw it. It has a certain amount of energy to it. But if you take the atom and split the atom, which is on a much subtler level, it has even many, many more times energy. If you go to the field of consciousness, which underlies the most subtle level of creation, infinite energy, infinite field of all possibilities. Imagine even 150 years ago, before one had discovered the laws of the electromagnetic field. If I was to say to you, you could take a picture of me, a video, and you could have that being broadcast all around the world, they'd think this was a miracle. It was magic,
of course.
Something mystical.
Mystical.
But it's not mystical. It's understanding a more fundamental field of life and the technologies, the knowledge, and then therefore the technologies that you can utilize that to improve mankind. Now on Facebook and social media, you can be friends with someone on the other side of the world, just like that. And think of that, you know, 100 years ago. Our world is becoming more and more united. But that's just utilizing a more fundamental field of light. And as the power of the electromagnetic field is this, million times a million more powerful is the field of consciousness, the unified field of natural law. And when we understand that and experience that and know the technologies of that, the power for benefit of mankind is infinite. But we're not fully utilizing it. And what keeps us from utilizing it is stress and strain in the nervous system. Stress and strain in it blocks the potential. It blocks the potential of humankind. And TM is the most effective technique now shown in over 600 studies, done in over...
Yeah, I was about to come there. Like in today's world, if you see lots of information is out there in the internet, and lots of meditation and spiritual practices are
absolutely
there for you. And people are confused because which path to choose, because everyone is saying, everyone is on the internet and everyone is talking good about something and bad about something. So it's kind of confusing. So as you are meditation practitioner also, and you are leading this organization, how would you say that TM is different from other spiritual practices?
I think if any technique brings about the experience of refinement of thought and the experience of transcendental consciousness, that unified field of natural law, then it is as effective and is transcendental meditation. Transcendental meditation is a simple mental technique that allows the mind to experience the full range of the mind till we reach that transcendental field of life. And how we can see it is different usually from what we term, when we think about when we hear the word meditation. Meditation usually falls into two different categories. Contemplation or concentration.
Right.
Contemplation is thinking about something. Oh, life is beautiful, whatever. If we think of the mind as like a pond, contemplation is like swimming around on the surface of the mind. Oh, this area has many different interesting areas. There's thoughts come and go, all that. That's contemplation,
right.
Exploring the surface.
Thinking and rethinking about things.
Concentration is different. Concentration is focusing the mind on some object or thought. But again, that's holding the mind on the surface, surface level. Because if we focus on one thought or one, maybe on a candle or something, it's focusing the mind but holding it there. Whereas transcendental meditation gives the mind the correct angle and then allows it to experience quieter and quieter and quieter levels of the thinking process until it transcends. It goes to that deep level of the mind. If we think of this like an ocean, the surface level, transcendental meditation gives us the experience of the full depth of the ocean, the silent inner value of the thing. So usually those meditations usually fall into those two different categories, but they're both more on the surface, surface level. So that's how, you know, there may be some practices out there because it's such a natural thing. Transcendental meditation is just the natural ability of the mind to experience the thought at quieter and quieter levels.
In India and in Nepal, we have been hearing about many Himalayan yogis. They climb mountain, they go to the caves and they meditate for years and years. They stay in silence. They do a regular intensive meditation without opening their eyes for years also.
Right.
And TM, we do only for one ghadi, that is 24 minutes or 20 minutes?
20 minutes twice
20
a day.
minutes, yeah.
Twice a day.
Yeah, so only by doing this 20-minute meditation, so short meditation, and many scientific research have been appearing that it is really working and it is going really deep. On the contrary, there are yogis, they are doing this intensive, long meditation for years and years, and growing beard and growing nail and staying inside the den. At the same time, this simple technique people are doing inside their home and inside their apartment in the middle of the city, and seems like they are growing more. How is that happening?
Well, you know, Maharishi liked to say there's two ways of life. The life of a recluse and the life of a householder. And in the past, people thought meditation is only for the recluse, the person who was giving up all of life and going off into the cave. That way of life is important. We need many yogis and recluses and saints practicing long. It helps maintain the balance in society.
Okay.
But it's not that the man who has a job and a householder who goes to work every day should be deprived.
There are some organizations, they organize meditation camps, and in those camps the people go for hours and hours of samadhi.
Yeah. Well, you see, the thing is, Maharishi wanted the householder, the day-to-day person who had a job and is upholding society through whatever different jobs and things that need to be done to maintain a society, should also have the ability to experience the field of Veda, this field of consciousness within every individual. So that was, he created this technique for the common man. But at the same time, he also created an organization for single men, single ladies who wanted to spend their whole life in some more longer meditations, because he knew that was also important. But he gave this knowledge to everyone and gave the appropriate techniques for the different areas of society. And so they're both are good. And you know, even for myself, you know, to become a Raja, to become a leader in Maharishi's movement, you know, the Raja training course, spend many hours of long meditation to have deeper and deeper experience, so that when you speak about it, you're more familiar. But it was for being active in the world. It wasn't for just going off into being in a cave. You know, one of the things that Maharishi first said to me, because he knew that my parents would be worried that I would run off to the cave, you know. And he said, give your mother 2 roses and say, these are the gifts of Maharishi.
Wow.
And they symbolize 200% life, a red rose and a yellow rose. And they symbolize 200% of life, 100% of the relative, 100% of the absolute spiritual value of life. These are the gifts of Maharishi. You don't have to give up material life in order to have the spiritual life, to have that field of pure consciousness lively in your life. So he really understood modern society, that we needed a tool to live in this fast-paced world. Because the more that the tree goes up and goes out, the roots have to go deeper and deeper. Transcendental meditation is a technique to make those roots go deeper into the field, the essence of life, so that you can put up and deal with the most dynamic activity of our modern age, when you've got cell phones with emails coming in, messages and things, and so many things we deal with. But you have to be anchored in that field of silence deep within the mind to be able to not get sick from the modern technology and the modern fast pace of life. That's what he gave as a technique.
There are mystics, there are saints and sages who understood the law of the life, and they felt like whatever is happening in this materialistic world is totally bullshit, and I will not like to be in this society. I would like to live secluded life, and they left the society. What my question is, like, if a person goes deeper and gets that realization that this materialistic world, whatever they are teaching, all those materialistic teaching, all those consumeristic teaching, this is not the right thing. One could feel like leaving the society, isn't it?
Well, I think it's balance. This, as I was saying just before, is, you know, if you have this it can't be all materialistic. It has to be balanced with this experience of spirituality, experience of consciousness, which is the essence of life. And if you're not deepening your experience of that field of life and only being plunged into the materialistic world where our kids are being absorbed into computer games and they're all just, you know, they have to have that balanced with the experience of nothingness, the field of consciousness where everything emerges from. Then it gives balance. Then it's fine. But if you have too much of this, then it's when the damage comes. And that's what's happening in our schools and everything. They're not experiencing that field of life. They're just being given more and more and more and more information, more and more, and it's stressful. And what does stress do? It shuts down the prefrontal cortex. That's what modern psychologists know now, that stress shuts down the prefrontal cortex of the brain. What is that? That's where we make decisions. That's where we develop moral reasoning. That's where we have broader comprehension. And what shuts that down? Stress. What does Transcendental Meditation do? It relieves stress. It opens up the prefrontal cortex. We become more creative. We become more broad-minded. We become more tolerant. We have greater moral reasoning. Our students need to have that.
Yes.
If they get completely just information-based education where they're just being shoved more and more information, what happens? Stress. They get stressed, and that shuts down the prefrontal cortex and makes them not as good a citizen. So we have to have balance in our education. Yes, we have to know this mathematics, this language, this sociology, this science. We need that relative information to function in society. But if we're not balancing that with the development of the mind, the container of knowledge, development of consciousness, then we begin to not fulfill the role of education, which is ultimately to create good citizens.
Right. We have been talking about meditation, and we are also talking about the impact of meditation. Maybe viewers would love to know how that meditation works. What is the technique that we do? Of course, it is a specific program that one needs to come and get the training. But could you give some outline? This is how it works. This is what you do in the meditation.
I'll do the best I can without, you know, it's very difficult. I can talk to you for a long time about what an apple pie is.
Right.
Apple pie is this thing, it has some crust and it has this. I can talk a lot about that, but until you experience and taste it, then you know what it is. But let's give a good understanding as much as we can to our viewers.
Right.
You know, to learn Transcendental Meditation, it takes it takes 7 steps.
Okay.
One is an introductory lecture. What are the benefits? Why do I want to learn TM? And we focus on the introductory lecture on the benefits of the practice.
I would love to hear some of the researches, some of the impacts also later on.
Yeah, so we talk generally about the benefits on mental potential, we talk about the benefits on health, and we talk about the benefits for social behavior, and ultimately world peace. So that's the introductory lecture. We give that overview, and we show scientifically how these different, research has been done in all these areas to validate the practice. So that's the first lecture. Then the second lecture goes a little bit more into the mechanics of the practice. Why is TM different? I even talked a little bit about this. Why is TM different than other forms of meditation, concentration, contemplation? What are the mechanics? And we talk in the preparatory lecture about how we experience deeper and deeper levels of the mind. But how does that happen? It happens due to the natural tendency of the mind. And we give an illustration how the mind naturally goes to a field of greater happiness. If I'm reading a book, I'm sitting in a library and I'm reading a book, and our favorite music comes on in the next room, bingo, our attention goes right there. Why? Because it's a field of greater charm. Now, like that, that's how TM works. We give the correct angle, and then spontaneously the mind goes to that field of infinite reservoir of energy, intelligence, and happiness. Because once you start the direction, it's a field of greater and greater and greater and greater charm. So the mind, just like a magnet, is drawn to that. But the key is, how do we give it that first proper angle? And this is what the teacher does. The teacher of Transcendental Meditation does. Gives the technique on how to give the mind the correct angle. And the rest is like diving. When we learn to dive, we learn to take the correct angle, and boom, we go right to the bottom of the pond. This is what we talk about. Then after the second lecture, we call it the preparatory lecture. Then the third step is a personal interview. Okay, everybody's a little bit different. All individuals are a little bit different, so we need to know, okay, this person I'm teaching TM. So there's just standard form, we fill out, and also just to know the background. Then the next day is personal instruction, one-on-one with the teacher of Transcendental Meditation. And it's at that time that the teacher gives the technique of how to take the correct angle and have the thing happen spontaneous. And then there are 3 follow-up meetings with everybody who started that weekend or whatever. And at that time, you have some experience, but then you understand that experience in terms of you get some more intellectual understanding on the basis of experience. If we were to talk about what we say in the first day of checking after learning TM, the first step of learning TM, it wouldn't mean anything unless you'd had the experience. Then you have some more experience, then some more knowledge. More experience and more knowledge. And then when you've completed those 7 steps, then you really fully have learned Transcendental Meditation, and you're on you're self-sufficient. Now, we offer a follow-up program for checking to make sure, because the one thing you can do wrong with TM is you start to try. Because as I said, this is a spontaneous process. The only thing you can do wrong is to start to try, because trying is an activity. And the transcending process is a systematic reduction in activity. It's a spontaneous reduction of activity of the mind and a corresponding reduction of physical activity, and experience deeper and deeper rest, settled mind. But it happens spontaneously. Now, if we start to make an effort on trying to hold the mind, concentration in any way, then the process can't work. So the main thing that you learn when you learn Transcendental Meditation is actually how to let it happen. And not interfere with it. Because usually the individual is habituated. Our lives are habituated. Oh, you want to do well in school? You work hard. You want to do well in your job? You work hard. That's good in the field of activity. But in the field of Transcendental Meditation, no trying is allowed.
Right. Could you like to share some success stories of meditation that really impacted?
I don't know where to begin.
Just
how many people, so many people, like, one of the, I think the most dramatic things that I've seen and listened to is people who are veterans, who have been in wars and have been exposed to extreme stress, you know, extreme overload of physical experience of terrible things that damage not just the body, you know, where maybe they get wounded or something, but damage the mind.
The trauma.
From trauma, we call it post-traumatic stress disorder, you know, and, you know, really even populations are now suffering from PTSD, like what's going on in Ukraine right now is just terrible. And we've seen now with this program of Transcendental Meditation, instant relief to these people who are suicidal and then just beginning to experience that relief, transcending, just transforming in 3-4 days, changing the direction of their lives. And giving them not just an experience at that one time, but giving them a tool to deal with stress on an ongoing basis. That's, to me, one of the most dramatic things. But, you know, all at-risk populations, abused women, you know, so many things you can think of. Our healthcare workers that have to deal with, you know, very stressful things all the time. Police, firemen, you know, all these people have to deal, to give them a tool that they can deal with those things in their day-to-day life, that gives them relief and allows them to live a normal life, a happy life, and a more progressive life, is the greatest fulfillment as being a teacher of Transcendental Meditation. So I can, yeah, sure, you can go on a website and see the testimonials here, 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 here. But it comes down to giving a person a tool to live life in a more enjoyable way.
Wonderful. We talk a lot about apple pie. How many people needs to try it and test it?
It really does come down to the experience.
Right.
It's not a philosophy. Transcendental meditation, there is an intellectual understanding about what's happening. That's knowledge, intellectual knowledge. But that all revolves around the core of giving the experience of transcendental consciousness. It's transcending that brings about the benefits, not talking about them. Talking about will not do it. And this brings to a very important area, is the impact of this knowledge on society.
Right.
You know, I've talked a little bit more about the benefits of an individual. But now what Maharishi predicted and actually showed and demonstrated was that when groups practice Transcendental Meditation and its advanced programs, the TM City program, together in groups, it creates an influence throughout society, a calming in the whole society, a peacefulness in society. You know, war, terrorism, social violence, all these things are the manifestation of the buildup of stress. It's a symptom. And if you can bring about an influence of calmness and peace and the relief of stress, even in the collective consciousness, the collective society, you can change society through group practice.
Right.
That's what we talk about as one of the benefits of practicing TM.
Right.
It's societal benefits.
Wonderful. I would like to hear something about Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. But first, when he came Nepal, as we have a poster here outside, it says that Nepal to lead the world. Why was that? Why he chose Nepal to lead the world? What do you think about that?
You know, when I first saw that, before I'd even visited Nepal, I said, why did he say that? But when I came here...
This is a small country no one knows about.
When I came here, I began to more and more understand why he said that. You know, the people in Nepal are very, very special people. Because they understand some very important values that are been lost in the West. The importance of family, of tradition. And they hold on to that very, very firmly. And I think one aspect is that Maharishi saw that, but also he saw that this was really the source, in many ways, of this Vedic knowledge. It was very lively here, naturally, just very lively. And that it could very quickly transform a country that really relatively was one of the poorer countries in the world, and really show how the impact of this revival of Vedic knowledge can completely change a country from being poor, underdeveloped, to being very developed. And with very little resistance to the understanding and the ideas because it was so common. You know, everybody knows, like you go to the West in 1958 and you talk about meditation. What? You know, like that was like, I mean, you know, now you go to the United States and Western Europe, meditation, yoga, it's very common now. But Maharishi was the one who made it that way. When he started teaching, no one knew what this was.
Yeah.
And now many people are copycat, you know, taking and doing this part. But Maharishi was the source.
Right.
And he saw in Nepal the potential, especially, you know, it was a Himalayan kingdom, a Himalayan country that really could adopt it very quickly, understand it and adopt it very quickly, and be a demonstration to the whole world how a very poor country could become very prosperous, wealthy, and maintaining that deep spiritual value at the same time. Demonstrate 200% of life to the world. So that's, I think, why he saw it. And my experience here is that we can do it. We can do it here. You know, especially with great leaders like we have with Deepak Beskota, you know, who really understand what Maharishi was trying to do and has a very powerful influence on the society of Nepal, being a founder of the cooperative movement, being a former minister of the government, being a former member of parliament. Many people know him. He stands up for Maharishi's knowledge, and people respect that. We need those kinds of leaders, especially in Nepal, where Nepal could just turn and become really the leader of all countries, because it has everything. You know, if you look physically, it has the incredible physical resources at its disposal. It has tremendous beauty. It has an understanding of the Vedic knowledge, but the next thing is full implementation. Our government, the government of Nepal, should be taking responsibility for creating a group of 10,000 Vedic pundits, practicing twice a day these technologies, not just for Nepal, but for the world. Because it could be done here with you take one fighter jet, it costs about $1 billion.
Right.
$1 billion. For $1 billion, we could endow a group of 10,000, give them a good quality of life where they do nothing but their Vedic practices. That's their profession. Peace creators for the world.
Peace warrior.
That's what's been lost. We don't have professional peace creators in the world anymore. This was the role of the Vedic families. They lost their Dharma. They lost their Dharma. Their responsibility, their profession was maintaining peace in the world. The time of Ram, when you read in the history books, the Ramayan, it was a time when it was heaven on earth. Why? Because they were maintaining coherence in the collective consciousness of society. They were maintaining the peaceful influence, maintaining it so no stress could build up. And when that began with the erosion of time, things, it's natural, things begin. We need to bring that back, Ram Raj. Bring back Ram Raj. But it comes from the knowledge of the Veda and fully implementing it in the language of science of our time. It was a different language though. Every time revivals come in different languages, different ways of speaking about it. Same thing, same eternal knowledge, but revived in what is the knowledge of our time.
As you have met Maharishi, we haven't met him, so we have just seen his videos and just could assume how he was. Could you elaborate briefly how was his being, how he was?
Being in Maharishi's presence, you knew this man was the embodiment of what he was speaking. That was the most thing that you recognized, and that's why we all...
Embodiment of what he was speaking.
Yeah. There was no difference, there was no gap. You know, he had an individuality.
Of course.
You know, he had his likes. but he had another reality that was beyond the surface, that he spoke. Everything he spoke was the voice of natural law. It was the voice of the time to create this revival of this knowledge. That was his life. And to be around it was an amazing experience, because you saw how he worked, and it was superhuman. You know, he would start very early, and he'd be speaking to one part of the world. And then as they went to sleep, he'd start speaking to another part of the world. When they went to sleep, he'd be speaking like that. And resting only maybe 2 or 3 hours a day, you know. All the time thinking, what more can I do for the world? How can I more quickly bring this knowledge to relieve the suffering of mankind? Every minute of every day, his life was for relieving the suffering of mankind. And everything he did was to bring the resources for bringing more and more relief to the world. And it was remarkable to feel the vibration of being in his presence. But the significance of that is he left it all for us in its completeness. He is with us today as much as he was then, because what he was knowledge. And he left the packages of knowledge for us. And he was teaching in the technological age where we have literally hundreds of thousands of hours digitally preserved of him speaking. So when you become a teacher of Transcendental Meditation, Maharishi teaches you. He trains you to be a teacher, not me, not someone else. You hear him, how you become a teacher. Okay. So he has preserved himself. You know, because the biggest loss, usually when a great teacher comes, is when he goes, oh, the person who was following him doesn't quite remember everything. Yes. And gradually it all disappears. Fades away. But here, you can see it not just in the books, but actually speaking. Maharishi speaking. There's no interpretation. No, oh, well, it's right there. Everything's there. And hundreds of thousands. You can go in Holland, you know, Vlodrop, Holland, our international capital, the big building, International Film and Tape Library, digitally preserved all of Maharishi. I can show you video of Maharishi walking here in Nepal, talks that he gave here in Nepal. Right. And it's very wonderful gift that he left us. Yes. And even the many things, you know, when he worked, he wouldn't care about bringing about the fulfillment of many of the things that he was talking about, because he knew that could be done anytime. He wanted to create the seeds, the packages of knowledge in every area, how to make ideal administration, ideal agriculture, ideal architecture, ideal healthcare, all these things. He created the seeds and the packages for every area of life. Now, he didn't implement it fully because he was R&D, research and development. He had to create all the packages for heaven on earth. Now, we get the joy of opening those packages. We take the seeds and we put them in. We see them grow into fulfillment. Lovely. This is what the Rajas are farmers. We are farmers. We take the seeds that Maharishi gave us and we plant them and we just water them, make sure that they come up. This is what we've seen in Nepal. You know, it's really how we just keep giving a little more knowledge, and everything's coming up so nicely here. You know, now to have 100 schools now with Maharishi's curriculum, Vedic schools, Gurukuls around Nepal. It's coming up, new generation. You know?
When we see a person born and raised outside of Nepal, coming to Nepal and speaking about our Vedic culture, it feels really warm inside our heart. At the same time, Nepal and India especially, lots of Christian missionaries are coming and working. And when we see Western people chanting Hare Krishna mantra and chanting and meditating and doing all this, our Vedic practices, we see our friends and our relatives going and reading Bible and spitting and talking bad about our culture. You have been seeing this also probably in Nepal. How you feel about that?
It's just narrow vision. You know, it's narrow vision for the person who is listening to that. It's narrow vision from the person. Because ultimately, you know, Jesus was an enlightened man. You know, what did he say? Kingdom of heaven is within. Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all else will be delivered unto you. What is that? Transcend. Go to that field of infinite reservoir of energy and intelligence that is within us, and from the power of that, everything else will be delivered. Will come to you. And every religion will find its fulfillment in Veda. Because Veda is within. It is, and it's not a religion. Every Christian should enjoy the practice of transcendental meditation and enjoy spreading their God in their way. But don't impose it. Make it, it's not, we should be all, Vasudev Kutumbakam. The world is our family. What makes the world enjoyable and blissful is the variety, the differences. Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, they're all manifestations of the same infinite field of consciousness. They are the glory and the joy of variety. You know what makes a beautiful garden beautiful is the flowers, different flowers. Doesn't that one flower needs to destroy the other flower in order to have its purpose? No. Right. We enjoy that other flower. And the togetherness, the mosaic of all of the differences make the beauty of the whole.
Right.
So Maharishi was not propagating Hinduism. No, he's propagating Veda, knowledge. You know, it's just like we don't think of gravity as being the property of Sir Isaac Newton and in England, and that if you believe in gravity, you believe in some English thing. No, it's just knowledge. It's knowledge that is applied to everyone. Same with Veda. It's just
my brothers and sisters from Nepal are leaving Nepal thinking that they will earn more and they will make better life abroad, and they are going and getting training of doing this and that. At the same time, we see many foreigners coming and learning Sanskrit language and doing the Vedic practice, learning Vedic practices and teaching this Vedic astrology and all. What you want to say to our Nepali brothers and sisters going abroad?
Bring all of the benefits that they run to the West for to all of the people of Nepal. We should have everything that you seek in the United States, you know, whatever it is, you know, a nicer car, more, whatever you like, you know, better job, whatever, all that shit. There's no reason that Nepal could be much more glorious than the United States. It's all dependent upon the development of consciousness. Total value of consciousness, both spiritual and material. We need to have better systems here, better organization of government, better, all these surface level things that you see, maybe that are better in the United States. There's only one reason it's better. It's just more creativity is being applied. And we have the infinite field of all possibilities, all creativity within every individual. And we can develop that here. Nepal should have both values. And they should, we want people to recognize the greatest gift is that inner value of life. And you don't need to give up materialism or run away to get it someplace else. You can do it all here. And I try to encourage more and more Nepalis to recognize that and stay here and make Nepal great by not draining the brain. A lot of the creativity, they run away. They need to focus on making Nepal better. We are very dedicated to that, you know. Because, you know, also, there's this very special quality to those that are brought up in this land and in India, you know, in the Vedic life, you know. It's a certain physiology, it's a certain dharma, a certain DNA, you could even say. They can reflect this most, and we need that to be nourished by Nepalis, by Indians, not by Westerners trying to pronounce Sanskrit in a very bad way many times.
Thank you very much for being with us. At last, what do you think is the secret of our existence? What is the secret of our life?
Well, the secret, I don't know if it's a secret, but the essence of our life is that we are consciousness. Our physiology is a reflection of consciousness, of Veda. The Veda, that book right on the bottom there, from Dr. Tony Nader, he worked with Maharishi to show that Veda is not in the books. Veda is in the physiology. The whole physiology is a reflection of the manifestation of Veda. And it's within every individual, not just Nepalis. Whether they believe it or not, this is the reality of life. And one needs to recognize that and awaken that. And then one has the secret of life. It's really coming back home, understanding what we are, you know, remembering what we are. We are, you know, the famous Mahavakya, you know, Aham Brahmasmi.
Aham Brahmasmi.
I am that.
I am that.
Sarvam Kovidam Brahm. I am nothing but that. But it's not just some kind of intellectual concept. One has to realize that, to experience that. Then one is fully realized. And that's the secret of life, is remembering what we are. I am that. Thou art that. All this is nothing but that. A field of consciousness. Pure consciousness. In its many, many, many multifarious manifestations. But at its essence, it is consciousness. That's the secret of life. To understand and remember that. Remember that.
Thank you very much. We are really honored to have such a wonderful personality in our show. I'm really honored to have you, sir. Thank you very much. If you have anything at last to share with our friends.
Thank you for this interview. It's a great joy to be here in Nepal and to be speaking to your audience.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev. Thank you very much, friends, for being with us. And thank you, Bobby and Bharat sir, for coordinating this interview. I hope you enjoyed this show. We'll meet in next interview. Thank you very much. Namaste.
The Secrets of Life with Suvas Agam.